Hey y'all, and happy Valentine's Day. Well, happy Valentine's Day weekend. By the time this goes up, it'll be Valentine's Day weekend. And I just wanted to do a part 2 to last year's episode, Dating While Elevating, from the first season. It's episode number 8. If you haven't listened to that episode, give it a listen. I recently just listened to it again just so I could get my bearings about where I wanted to go with this episode. And I realized there's so many things I didn't talk about and some little stories I want to share with y'all. So if you're interested in hearing more about my process and my viewpoints on dating while on your spiritual journey, keep listening. So as always, y'all know this is the How to Be Magical podcast. My name is Nikki Buchanan. I'm the owner of Soul Things Botanica. And I am in my mid-30s. I'm 35 years old. I'm single. I don't have any children. I've never been married. But I've had a lot of experience with dating and just like figuring out like what works for me, what don't work. And in terms of, I guess, coming to terms with myself about what is acceptable for me, what my standards are, what my boundaries are, what my hard no's are. You know, like all of that stuff is mad important. But I think sometimes we don't want to admit that we have to relinquish a certain level of control when we are on these paths, because when you're on these paths, you're not by yourself, right? So that's something I had to keep reminding myself of, especially in the moments when I feel alone or feel lonely. And there's nothing wrong with loneliness. You know, like our culture makes you feel bad if you desire something that's not there and you feel some type of way about it. Like, that's natural. Animals partner, you know, even if it's just to mate. Some partner for life, but some partner just to mate. And, you know, that is a part of human, you know, biology, to that desire to procreate, that desire for family, that desire to nest, that desire to, you know, have that unit, that desire to further your bloodline. And I don't really think we do ourselves any favors when we like try to tell ourselves that it's not important, or we don't want it, or it's not something that's possible. Like, nah, it could be hard. I ain't gonna sit up here and make this shit sound like it's easy. This shit is not easy, fam. And it is not easy. And I think that, you know, especially like the higher you go, the further you go in your journey, the deeper you get in your faith and in your practices, you will find that there's certain things that, like I said in the last episode, certain things that worked for you 10 years ago is not going to work. Some shit that worked 10 months ago ain't going to work. Even some shit that worked last month might not work this month. You know, it's a constant conversation. It's a constant, you know, ebb and flow. And it's a dialogue. And I think that, you know, when we talking about traditional diaspora traditions, like African traditional religions, or traditional diaspora religions or spiritual practices, we're talking about practices that come out of communities. We're not talking about solitary practices. So while you may have your practice for yourself, when we're talking about joining a larger community, when we're talking about joining an Ilé or a Munaso or a voodoo house or anything like that, that is a community. And, you know, communities have standards, communities have guidelines, communities have expectations. And to be fair, like, I'm going to keep it all the way 100. There's a lot of us, especially living in the Western societies, as diaspora people, there's a lot of us that, you know, we're trying to fit into something that's not made for us. And we're trying to assimilate into structures that don't do anything for us. And we try to validate ourselves through practices and through, you know, rituals that don't add anything to our lives. And that is hard to take sometimes, especially when we're talking about, you know, what we're exposed to and what we are, you know, raised to believe, and what we see as in mainstream. We think that because we're not getting it like that, that means that we're never going to get it the way we're supposed to get it. And that's not necessarily the case, you know. And depending on how you look at courtship, dating, romance, all that stuff, depending on which lens you're looking at it through, it, you know, you could be interpreting something that is not really meant for you to be interpreting, because it ain't yours to be worrying about. So many, many years ago, like, early 20s, I had found this book, and it was called, it was like something along the lines of like, in defense, like the subtitle, it was like about arranged marriage, but the subtitle was like in defense of arranged marriages. And it was a collection of essays and like interviews that the author, who I believe was Indian, like from India, her parents had an arranged marriage, and she was raised out here or in Canada. She wasn't raised in India. And she had always been very, I guess, confused about the nature of her parents' marriage. She didn't quite understand the whole concept of arranged marriage. And in the course of questioning their marriage, she decided to just do some research, and she reached out to other couples. She interviewed her own parents. She interviewed a bunch of other people who were in arranged marriages and happy. And, the common thread on all of the marriages was that they had a shared value system, and that they trusted that the families that raised them in a culture with a certain set of values and morals and all that stuff would be better suited to pick somebody who was going to complement the person that they had raised. And it makes a lot of sense. Like, that's why, like, this whole thing about dating in America, in the Western world, is on some like, you see somebody, you like them, you get to pick who you want. And we as a society look down on people who don't pick. Things get chosen, and we equate that to someone being oppressed this is not to say that there is not domestic violence in a lot of relationships, just in general, arranged or not. But I think when we're talking about the core of what arrangement looks like, of what, marriage and coupling and romance and all those things look like, again, like I said, you're going to look at it, it's going to come to you based on your societal lens. And when you start walking down certain paths or whatever, you already are in agreement that what's mainstream is not you, and that just because what you believe and what you value is not being shown and depicted accurately in the mainstream doesn't make it not valid. Like, that doesn't, like, seen or unseen, what you value is valid. Whether anybody else validates it, you make it valid. You're the one that validates it by walking the path, by living that truth, by embracing that journey, and understanding that everything that's on your journey is supposed to be for your betterment. So, yeah, this book was really good. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but it was a really good book. And I remember afterwards reading it, I was like, damn, there is some shit that I probably don't want that burden of responsibility to be able to pick somebody who's going to be the best for my life. Like, how could I possibly know? How can anybody know without any type of recognizance on who this person is, where they came from, who raised them, what they like? You don't know. You don't know. And this is not to get down on anybody that dates tradition, in the traditional Western way of, going online or meeting through friends or whatever. But I'm just saying, when we talking about being a part of these traditions, we have to also give some room for the traditions to be a part of us in the ways that we truly need them to be. So, like I said, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, Match.com, Bumble, Hinge, all them things that's all fine and good, right? The system itself is not bad, but how the hell are you going to be able to tell who a person's character is by looking at a picture and reading some words? You don't know this person from nowhere. Them is a stranger to you, yes? So, you go out on a date with them. Everything could be cool. People could talk a good game, but you still need to have your other side to be able to make some decisions. Now, if you are in a tradition, or if you come from a place where matchmaking and all of that stuff is real, then, I encourage you to when it's your time, to fully embrace that process, because that's a privilege that a lot of people don't have. And that's honestly something that a lot of people really need, because we see so many people enter into bad relationships, whether it's financial abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, or whatever, neglect and abuse are not always spoken of in the same vein, but like, to be neglected emotionally, spiritually, financially, all of those things, those can contribute to damage, sometimes irreparable damage to people's psyche, to their hearts, and to their ability to love and be vulnerable with the capacity that they were before they was damaged. And you got to do a lot of work to undo some of the damage and the stress that was caused by a bad relationship. And women in particular, we have to be very safe about who and what we allow in our bodies, in our psyches, in our minds, because we're the ones that bear the burden a lot of the time of the consequences of what the outcomes, So, and this is not, listen, I'm grown, all right? I've been fucking for a long time. Excuse my French, but I've been fucking for longer than some people on this podcast been alive. And to be fair, like, it's not about, not having sex or being, like, if that's not what you want to do, it's not about that. But it is about recognizing that we have to sometimes step back and remove ourselves from the process in order for the process to take root. So, I'm saying all of this to say that, listen to the last episode, and I didn't talk about mad shit because there's always, you always gotta leave them wanting more. But I got a couple stories, like really funny ones. But like, there's like so many instances where who I am and what I believe and what I do and all of that stuff has been challenged by some man who thought that he knew better than me about me. And it's like, boy, is you out your ragged ass mind? Like, don't talk to me like that. But like, if, with another person, it might go left. With somebody else, it could have been that this person is second guessing themselves and is doubting themselves and is, putting their desire for companionship and intimacy over their best interests. And it happens. And like I said, especially now in a pandemic, people was really feeling that longing for something real, and sometimes when you are searching for things, something gonna find you instead. And it might not be what you really need. So, years ago, I was on some dating site, whatever. I can't do this shit no more. I'm done. Like I said, I can't bother with the things that the pure fuckery that they're about. So, I was on a dating site, linked with some guy, right? Like we matched or whatever, and then he wanted to go like to a park and have like a little picnic. So I was like, all right, that's cute. And he lived out in Canarsie, and I was driving. I had my old car, and I was I had my girl. It was me and Keisha. I didn't name my car Keisha. So me and Keisha go out to Canarsie. And the guy lived a few blocks away from the park. So he was like, oh, can you, pick me up and we go to the park? I'm like, sure. So I go pick him up. He gets in my car. And I drove like 2 blocks. And he has made some comment about like people driving crazy. And he don't like, he don't be feeling comfortable when people be driving like this, that, and the third. And I was like, I felt some type of way about that. Because I'm like, nigga, what is you really saying? So I was like, you got a problem with the way I'm driving? He was like, well, yeah. I was like, well, you can get out of my car. He was like, what? I was like, you could get out of my car and you could walk to the park and I'll meet you there. He was like, are you serious? And I'm dead serious. I dead put that man out of my car. Like, you can get out right here and I'll meet you there. I'll park up and meet you there. And when I pulled up, he was just walking up. And I guess he really looked at me like, wow, this bitch really put me out of her car. First of all, you're not going to come in my car, okay, that I pay for and maintain and put gas in and talk about the way I drive. And you don't want to ask me to pick you up, okay? For all of that, you could walk. Okay, so that's what started the date off. So you already know. The date was already doomed from the start. But it was a nice day. He had packed a little lunch, little sandwiches, whatever. So we sitting there talking. And he started talking about a whole bunch of shit. I guess, like, I don't know. I don't ever bring up spirituality or religion and all that shit when I'm on a first date. Like, I just don't do that. But he brought it up. And he was just like, yeah, like, I was atheist for a long time. After I stopped going to church when I was younger, and then he told me about some shit he had come across, some Rosicrucian temple of what I was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but okay. And he was just going on and on about it, and he was like, yeah, everything that I had a question or a challenge with, they met me with answers and concrete, this, that, and the third, and la la la. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. And we talking, he's still going on about it and about how, I guess enlightened he is and all this shit. And this was years ago. And maybe, let's say not even a whole bunch of years. Let's say this was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I was already in my path. I was already in my journey. I was already, making the strides towards the place and the things where I am now and moving forward. And I had, previously never really talked to guys about my spiritual practice because I'm like mad personal about my shit. And again, it's not up for debate or even like real yes, it's not up for debate. Like, I believe what I believe, and I live how I live, and it's not for you to validate or prove how I live. And I'm not putting my stuff out there for you to want to sit up and challenge. So I had said, well, yeah, I practice a form of Orisha worship called Ukumi, otherwise known as Santeria in New York. And I also, keep a table for my spirits, and, I practice Spiritismo and and he was just like, he looked at me mad sideways, like, wow, so then we started talking about like spirits and stuff like that. And he was just like, wow, you're really weird. Like, you're different. I never talked to anybody like you before, and this and the third. But he didn't say it in a way that was like genuine, like, it wasn't no admiration in his voice. He was dead looking at me like I was crazy. He was like he was just confused. Like, he could not wrap his mind around it or whatever. Meanwhile, he's talking to me about some Christian Rosicrucian shit from Italy. And I'm just like, the fuck that got to do with you? You black. Talking to me about Italy and some Christian knights. I was just like, I don't know what that is, but I'm black. Okay. And my people is from here and from the Caribbean by way of Africa. So I'm going to practice the things that came through my blood. I don't know nothing about no Rosicrucian knights. Sorry. And he was just like, wow, that's so, that's so weird, and this and the third. And then when the date was over, he was trying to get me to come in his house. And I was just like, nah, I'm not coming to your house. And he was just like, well, why this and that? I want to cook this and that. I'm just like, my nigga, we just had food. Like, I have no reason to, like, I ain't pressed for a meal like that. And I'm definitely not going to no strange man's house. Like, you lucky that you was able to be in my car. Oh, by the way, when we left the park, he got in my car. He didn't say shit about my driving. All right. So yeah, you got to check these people before they get out of pocket. And yeah, afterwards, I think I was on my way. When I was leaving him, I was on my way to the LA. So I was like, spoke to my godmother, and I was like, oh, I'm on my way. And I was on my way over there, and I ended up spending the night over there or whatever. And in the morning, I had woke up to all of these messages where he was just like, he said something. I guess I didn't reply back fast enough to him. And he was just like, consistency is really important to me and all this. And I was like, oh, nigga, you is crazy, because we just went out yesterday. I told you I was on my way to my spiritual, my religious, wherever I'm going, and I'm not available. Like, and we just went on one date. Like, I'm not beholden to you. Like, I need you to, like, relax. And then he was just like, yeah, I just wanted to know if I can interest you in some literature, that may want, maybe you might rethink your Santeria beliefs. And I was like, I know you are, wow. See, I wasn't telling him what I believe in to proselytize and to convert him, because I don't believe in that. You believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. If you're interested, if Spirit wants that, if Muerto wants that, then we can move. But other than that, I'm not pressed for you to be down for what I believe. I don't need that. I don't need it. And he definitely tried to play me, talking about he gonna offer me some pamphlets. I'm like, how you gonna offer me some paperwork about some Italian Christian nonsense that don't got nothing to do with you or me? And then, what? Boy, get out of here. Get out of here. Not after I know everything that the Muerto, that the Egun, that the Orisha, that the Nkisi have done for me. What? You can't show me nothing. I'm sorry. You can't show me nothing. You can't. You can't. And I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, and you good too. And he ended up sending me some long ass message, cursing me all the way out. And I was like, yeah, and this is why you have revealed yourself to be mentally unstable, egotistical, and full of shit. And not for me, so like, let somebody else deal with you on that level, but I'm not dealing with you like that. And then at the time I was dating a few people. Well, I was dating. So I was, interviewing, and the guy who I ended up, being in a relationship with at that time, he was Jamaican, and y'all know I'm Jamaican. My dad's Jamaican, and my father's whole family's still in Jamaica and everything like that. And I call myself the hood Obia woman because in Jamaica, what I practice, y'all would consider it to be Obia, and somebody probably might want to burn my house down if they really felt some type of way about it, because it's still illegal to practice Obia, quote unquote, in Jamaica. Still on the books. Legally, it's illegal. It's a legal thing. So I never forget, like, we was dating for a little bit, and we was really feeling each other. I really liked him. He really liked me. And something told me, like, yo, you got to tell him, like, before you get too deep with this man, let him know what you really about. And then whatever he says, it just is what it is. And I told him, and I didn't tell him everything in detail, but I definitely, I started the conversation off with something like, I am a practitioner of a tradition where It's a Yoruba tradition. We deal in a multitude of entities and called Orisha. And at some point in the future, when I get initiated, I will have to spend a year and 7 days in white. And there's going to be a lot of other like social things that I'm not going to be able to participate in. And, there's going to be a lot of things that I'm going to have to change about my life and all of that stuff. And I was very, giving him a very brief overview of what the Yarorahe is. And, as a Yawo, there's mad things that you won't be able to do. So he was quiet for a second. And then he was like, okay, And then he had made like a joke. Well, he used to have this really bad sense of humor. After a while, I was like, this is abusive. But he was like, oh, well, I'm not really down with all of that. And, it was nice talking to you and all this stuff. And I was like, what? And then like he let like a little too much time pass. And he was like, oh, no, I'm just kidding. And I was just like, damn. And it really like, I was really, hurt in that moment because I was like, wow, like I'm really being vulnerable with you. And it's hard to be vulnerable. I'm one of the people it's very hard for me to be vulnerable. Like it's hard for me to open up at all. So like the fact that I did that and then he made a joke, like a cruel joke about it, that should have been my red flag right there. But again, like I said in the last episode, like there are things that you will find yourself tolerating or putting up with in your desire for love and intimacy and relationship and romance, whatever it is. And it is not to judge yourself or anybody, but it's like that's really how it be. It really be like that. Like you almost half in love with this person, and the thought of them rejecting you is hard to take. And that relationship didn't last as long as I guess he thought it was going to last, because there was just like so many things that it was just like we were constantly clashing, and because our values was different. And I'm a very family oriented person, so that's why it's very easy for me to participate in the traditions that I participate in, because we are dealing with community. So as someone who comes from a big family and comes from a family that's very tight knit and has a very still to this day have very strong connections with each other and solid relationships with each other. Some people that's not from anything like that, they're gonna have a very hard time understanding where you coming from, because they don't have no point of reference for that. And after a while, it started to be a problem. Like everything that I was doing started to be a problem, and it was only because he didn't have anything in his life of comparison. And this is why in the Bible they talking about you got to be evenly yoked. Like that shit is real. Like you cannot be with anybody who is not on your level, and people don't want to hear that. And it was crazy because my godmother at the time, her godfather had given me a reading, and my godmother's there, she's taking notes, and he was just like, yeah, you have to be very wary, you have to be aware of competition in this relationship, because this person is constantly wanting to challenge you and like push up against you, in a way that's not like beneficial to either of you. And when he said that, I was like, okay, I trade to that, because that's real. Like my ex definitely was threatened by the fact that I had so many, beautiful things in my life. And he felt that he did not have as many beautiful things. But it was like, yo, this is a life that I cultivated. This is a life that I want. This is a life that makes me feel fulfilled and satisfied. He was like, oh, you always spend time with your family. I'm like, what are you talking about? Of course, why wouldn't I spend time with my family? Listen, some people come from families where they don't like each other and they don't spend time with each other and they don't, but I don't know anything about that. And I honestly cannot be with somebody who's not family oriented, because I'm so family oriented. Like, and the ways in which I am willing to participate and help and be a part of multiple families at this point. Multiple, like my blood family, my blood family, my religious family, my spiritual family. Like, yeah, like I'm a family girl. I'm not here to be like, oh, I'm the biggest, baddest in the room, because that's not how I was raised. And I was raised with a bunch of people who were very strong in who they were, very, very, solid in their personhood. And that's who they raised me to be. So I found that anytime that I waver from the things that I was raised with and the values that was instilled in me, I have problems. The fact that I allowed somebody to stay, even to connected to me in a relationship that was causing me so much stress and so much agita and so much confusion, and just at the end, misery. it was like, yeah, you're going to be miserable because this person's miserable and they want you to be miserable with them too. And you're not supposed to be miserable. For all of that, might as well be by yourself. And as some of y'all know, I had moved to Jersey a few years ago and I had gotten robbed. And I had broke up with my ex before I even moved. The apartment was actually the catalyst for the breakup because we were supposed to be moving in together, and it turned into this whole thing, and we ended up breaking up. And then after I had moved, I had been at the apartment for a few months or whatever. He had reached out to me like, hey, I was wondering if if I could see you. I really miss you. I want to talk to you and this and the third. And then he was trying to get back. Like he wanted us to get back in a relationship. And then the robbery happened, right? So like he's still living in Brooklyn. I'm in Jersey and he drives. And at that time I didn't have my car. I had given up my car at that time after I moved to Jersey. Before I moved to Jersey, I had given up my car. So I didn't have my car, but he had his vehicle. And I was going back and forth to Brooklyn to like spend time and like go on dates and shit like that. But he had never been to the apartment. He had never come to see me. But then I had gotten robbed. So I called my father first and then I called him. And I was just like, yo, somebody broke in my apartment. He was like, what? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, well, do you need anything? I was like, yeah, I got to change my locks. So he sent me money to change the locks. But then after like a couple of days, I started to realize like I didn't want to leave the house. Like I started to get real nervous because I'm like, I don't know who's watching me. And if whoever's watching me knows that ain't nobody coming in this house. Like they ain't seen nobody literally except for like but 2 or 3 people. I believe it was my mom, my god sister, and a friend of mine at the time. Those are the only people that had been in my house. Like nobody else had been in my house. I wasn't having a whole bunch of company. I wasn't dating. There definitely was no man coming. So whoever had been watching me to rob me had knew that there was no man around the house, and I was just like, nah. I was like, yo, I had called them one day. I was like, listen, I need you to come because I want to go to the laundry. I want to go to Home Depot and get some things for the house. And I have a couple of other errands to run, but I don't really feel safe to just be out on the road in a cab or on the bus or whatever, doing these things and leaving the house unattended for, this much time. Like I don't feel safe. And he was just like, well, if I come, I can only come for a few hours because I got to work in the morning, this and the third. I was like, well, my nigga, you drive. So like, you could like bring a bag of clothes, spend the night and leave for work in the morning. Like, what's the problem? And he was just like, again, like I said, that cruel kind of deadpan joking, whatever. And to me, I was so rattled by this robbery that I just did not have no room. Like, don't joke with me when I'm telling you that I'm in distress and need, and I really am making myself vulnerable and needing like assistance. And I told him straight up, I said, listen, if you can't come and spend the night, then don't come. And he was like, oh, okay. And we hung up. And I ain't never heard from that man since. It's been years. I ain't never heard. And my homegirl recently asked me, a couple months ago, had asked me, like, did you ever block him? I was like, I had to check my phone to make sure I didn't. I was like, I ain't block him. He never called me again. Never said nothing to me again. So again, people will find themselves, they won't even know why they are removing themselves from your life because they're not coming to add nothing to you. Then they coming to take something away from you. And let me tell you something right now. Your guardians don't want nobody taking nothing from you. All right. They not here for that. They like, listen, to get the things that we gave you, the gifts that we bring you. This person better know that you worth something to somebody. You belong to somebody. And that's what my mother always say. Like, don't let nobody treat you like you don't come from nowhere. Don't let nobody treat you like you don't have people. You got people. And as somebody who was raised as the only child, like my father has other children. I have a younger brother from my dad, but my mom never had any other kids. It was just me. My mom always was saying like she regretted that she never had more kids because she was raised with her sisters. She's the oldest. And she was like, we always had each other's backs. Like in the neighborhood, anybody ever messed with one of us, they messed with all of us. And I feel that I didn't give you that opportunity to have those siblings. But my first cousins from my mom, like from my mom's side of the family, we are like brothers and sisters. Like I'm the oldest and I'm the only girl and I have 4 male cousins under me. And those are my brothers. Like the one that is right behind me, that's 9 months behind me, that's like my brother. Like Jason is my brother, So, we always had each other's backs, but I went to school in Harlem and everybody else went to school in Brooklyn. So there was only so much that we could have each other's backs. But when we was together, we together. And we spent a lot of time together. We grew up together like siblings. So I did have a bit of a sibling type of relationship with my cousins. But like in my house, it was just me. And in terms of situations like this, like when somebody break in my house and tried and stole from me and stole money from my LA and all that stuff, like, yeah, I had to call my father. Like, Dad, listen, my father was My father was on his bullshit, and I had to cuss him Ross and be like, look, Dad, I know this is not a good time for you, but I'm sorry. I need you to be dad right now. Like, somebody broke in my house. I don't feel safe, and I need somebody to see a man coming in here, okay? And I could be as progressive, womanist as I want to be, but at the end of the day, I do believe that men have their place. And I'm not going to apologize for that. And I need you to show up and pull up. Otherwise, don't call me no more. Because you feel comfortable enough to call and lean on me as your child, for anything that you need assistance with. I need you to come and be dad right now. So he finally, I do believe my mom called him and cussed him out. And Dad, he was like, why your mother calling me, talking to me like this? I was like, well, shoot. If you don't want her talking to you like that, you need to pull up. And he pulled up. So my dad came. He did the dad things, fixed things around the house, took me grocery shopping, took me to Home Depot, did all of the dad stuff. And I was appreciative of that because that's all I needed. I didn't need him to send me any money. Okay. Money was not my issue. Safety and security was my issue. So my father was just like, he was like, well, what's up with this man? Why? And I told him, my father, now he want to be mad. And I'm like, well, see, this is why I need you to be dad right now. Because this man who called himself being in love with me couldn't even show up in my time of need. And there was another friend of mine, good dear friend of mine that pulled up. And I don't have a relationship with this man. Like, we was never intimate and nothing like that. We was never, our relationship wasn't like that. And I had called him. I was like, yo, somebody broke in my house. I need a cutlass. I need a machete. Like, I need you to find a machete for me. I need one. I need another one in the house. And this was around the time here in New York when there was a little Dominican boy who had been brutally murdered in the case of mistaken identity up in the Bronx. And he had been hacked to death with machetes by a bunch of grown-ass men. So they had put a ban on machete sales and stuff like that in the city. And it was just like really hard. And I don't know where this man find the cutlass, but maybe a week later, he called me. He was like, what's your address? I was like, I gave it to him. He was like, all right, I'm gonna call you when I'm outside. This man didn't have no car at the time. This man rented a zip car, drove from New York with this machete, and brought it to me. He didn't even come in my house. We just sat in the car and talked. And he was just like, I just want to, I pull up, like, I was like, nah, thank you. I appreciate you. And I love that man dearly. Like, love that man. And like, to me, that is how men are supposed to show up in my life. Now, every person's going to have a different standard of what they want and what they expect. But I expect the men who say that they love me to pull up and love me, and not be on no funny, duddy bullshit. Like, and to me, like, it's very important that as people who are spiritually minded, as people who are in these African traditional religious and spiritual spaces, that we come to terms with what type of support we need and what type of partnership we need and value, so that way we know what to look for. So for me right now, like, it's beautiful for me to go to my Elay and see all of the couples there working together, young and old, gay and straight, right? There's plenty of married couples. There's plenty of partnered couples. There's young people, old people, everybody in between has their counterpart. There's single people at the house, but we all family. So it's not like I'm going to the house dating, like looking for love. I'm not there for that. But I see the love that's there, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel optimistic. It makes me feel hopeful that one day I'll be bringing somebody by the house and be like, hey, y'all, this is so-and-so, so-and-so. This is my family, and seeing like being able to have a partner that could be integrated into my lifestyle, that our lives could be meshed together in a way that is fruitful for both of us. And one of my god sisters, who's an elder, she's an elder in the religion, but she's much younger than me. It was her boyfriend is getting crowned soon, and it's just like, it's beautiful because she's been crowned for a long time already, and since she was a teenager, and it's just like, wow, it's just nice to see. She's such a beautiful young woman. She's so I'm trying not to get emotional. She's such a beautiful person. And when you see how her boyfriend interacts with her at the house, her mom is there, her dad is there, her sister's there, her brother's there, everybody's there, the whole family's there, her godparents is there, everybody's there, and you see him just be very seamlessly in the mix, it's like, yeah, that's how it should be. One of my other god sisters got engaged recently. Her fiance comes to the house. He's also initiated in Lukumi as well. So I've seen them working ceremonies together. Like, it's beautiful to be in a room and everybody's working ceremony, and you just see all the people there, just they got their aprons on, they got their hats on, they elbows deep in animal guts and God knows whatever else, and it's just so much love in the room, and they cracking jokes, and it's just like, it's just, again, that's the family, you know. I don't want nobody that can't be family with me and mine. I don't want that. That can't do nothing for me. I ain't gonna feel good about that. I'm not gonna feel good when I'm gonna be at the Elay for 12 hours because it's a big ceremony happening and they home sitting mad. Because that happened with my ex one time. We were supposed to go out. He was like, call me when you get home. And I was like, all right. And I went and got a reading with my godmother's godfather. And we were sitting there talking or whatever. And then everything ran over, you know, like, because sometimes spirit be on the time they want to be on. So it wasn't like, I'm going to have a 30-minute reading. Like, no, we sat there as long as we needed to sit there until they would finish saying what they needed to say. And I had my phone in my bag or whatever. I'm not going to be on my phone in a reading. That's disrespectful. I'm on the mat. I don't have time to look at my phone. And when I got back to my phone, this man was in a rage. Like, you had me waiting and this and a third. And I'm just like, wow. Like, so because you had to sit and wait at home and watch a little TV, you feeling some type of way? Like, you know where I was? I wasn't out doing nothing. You know where I was? Why you acting like this? But like, yeah, I'm not putting up with that shit. I'm not putting up with that. Sorry. There was a guy too, a while ago who, over the years, we crossed paths with each other. I believe I wrote about it on the blog. And we crossed paths with each other over the years. And we genuinely liked each other, you know. And I don't have no issues with him. I thought he was a nice guy and everything like that. But he just didn't have enough ambition for what I felt I needed in a partner. And, you know, over the years, we would like have a few weeks on and then I would just dead the situation. Like, I can't, like, you just stagnant and you more in love with the idea of being in a relationship with me than you are in being in a partnership with me and being on one accord with yourself and what you need in life. You just want to be in a relationship just because you don't want to be single. That's not enough for me, right? Like, that means that me as the person, as I'm interchangeable to you. That means that anybody that's going to give you any semblance of attention or commitment or whatever, you'll take it because that's what you want. Great, but I don't want that one size fits all. I want somebody who looks at me and they like, yo, no, you. Yeah, you. Not your homegirl. You right there. Yes, you. That's what I want. I want her. And focus on that, because other than that, if it's not tailor-made, I don't want it. And the last time that I gave him a chance was in the fall. And I seen him maybe like the year before, and I was just like, sir, you still with the fuckery. So nope. And every year we getting a little older, you know, and I had maybe started talking to him. I was maybe in my mid to late 20s. And like I said, now I'm 35. So like, here we are, you know, he's still handsome, don't have no kids and nothing like that. But he just wasn't, he was still in the same place where I left him. And he came in the house, like, again, so, oh my gosh, we could talk about company and all that stuff. Like, my house is not just my house, right? I don't live here by myself. I might be the only living person, like physically living person, but my house is full of people, right? I have so many guardians. I have so many spirits with me that I can't just bring anybody in my house. It's not about, it's like literally if you live with your whole family, you can't just you can't just be having company just because you want to have company. Like, it got to be the right time. It got to be, you know, because somebody's going to want to know who this person is, where they come from, they're going to have to be prepared for that level of questioning. And this level of questioning in my house, in the case, is not always a physical questioning, but it will be, you will feel something. You come in my house, you feel it. Like, you'll feel it. And he came over. He comes through the door. He got 2 bags of groceries, like food and all this shit. And I was like, oh, cool. So I put the food away and everything. And we start talking. And he had asked me a question. We was here talking for a few hours. And he asked me a question like, what's something about you that I don't know that I should? And I thought about it. For a second. And I was like, damn, should I say something? So I said, I told him, I said, you know, I'm scratched in Palo. I'm scratched in Palo, and I'm also a Lukumi practitioner as well as the Spiritismo. And he was like, He was like, oh, okay. He was like, well, my mom's Panamanian, and she into all of that stuff. And he was like, I got the crosses on my shoulders, so I know. And I was like, oh. Now, that gave me a little bit of pause. Like, maybe after all of these years, maybe I might know a little something. You know, maybe he might be somebody that's viable, but he wasn't. But it was just interesting that I was able, compared to my ex, where I felt so much hesitation and trepidation and fear around expressing myself and being vulnerable and being authentically myself, that in the next time around, it was easier. And even if the person didn't work out, I felt more comfortable with expressing myself and being seen in that moment for who I really am. And he was like, that's interesting or whatever. And then we talked a little bit more, but like, I don't know if he had realized it, but I was walking some OBO in his ass when he came in here, because I had some incense burning, and I had some frankincense, and I had some garlic skins. And garlic skins make people like tell the truth and shit. Garlic skins are like a truth serum. So as we talking, he's just telling me everything that has been happening since the last time I seen him. And he's going in. He's telling me, in great detail about the other women that he had been with and what happened this and the third. And this man was pretty much like a homosexual at this point. And I'm just like, wow, you really telling me that you laying up in this woman's house and all, and you wasn't paying the bills, and you was, and you proud of that? Like, you saying it like with like, yeah, and I'm just like, wow. And then I guess he must have started looking around here and was trying to case my house. Like, he had asked me like, oh, can I bring my PlayStation in your house? I was like, no. He was like, well, I was like, you're not bringing your gaming system in my house. Like, for what? You coming to visit me. You're not coming to play PlayStation. So you play PlayStation in your own time. Don't come in my house with that. He was like, wow, okay. And I was like, you do realize that you wasn't, like, the only reason that you was able to stay the night and be comfortable was because you walked in this door with an offering. Like, if you came in this house empty-handed, I highly doubt that you was going to be able to spend the night. Like, those groceries bought you a night. But don't get it twisted. Like, you still have to prove your worth. And he was just looking like, and I was just like, even the words coming out of my mouth sounded foreign to me, because I was like, who is this person talking about? That wasn't me. It wasn't one of these people walking around here was like, hold on, let me just jump in, interject in this conversation right here, because if you think you're gonna be coming up in here and saying you got all of us fucked up. And it's literally just like back in the day when if somebody wanted to go out with you, they had to come to your house and look your family in the eye and be like, okay, who are you? Where you from? Who your people? What's your family name? Oh, okay, I know some of them. Oh, okay. All right, where y'all going? Okay, what time you gonna have her back? All right now. All right, and it's like, those things keep honest people honest, and my godfather, my like from birth, like my godfather used to always say that, like when he dropped me off to college, and I had a trunk, and he had brought me a lock for my trunk because I didn't have a lock. I said, what do I need a lock for? It's just me and my roommate. He said, it keeps honest people honest. And I was like, you know what? You right. You right, Unc. You are right. And yeah, like the locks that we place, the locks that we have in our life are our ancestors. Those are the locks. The locks that we have in our life are our Orisha. Those are the locks. The locks are our muertos, our spirits. The locks are our angels. The locks are our Inkisi, right? Those are the locks. Our Ori. Those are the locks. And if somebody is not willing to respect the boundaries and respect the timing and respect you and have the key that opens that lock, then you got to understand that person is not for you, and that's cool. Don't force nothing that's not for you. You don't want nothing that's not for you. Why? You don't want nothing that's not for you. So, excuse me, I understand that there's a lot of people who, it's quarantine, and we got like so many things happening. People are home by themselves. They feeling like they want to be with somebody, and some people are fine, are realizing like, you know what? I ain't got time to be pussyfooting around. Like, I want something real, and they ain't making commitment. They're very serious about what they want. And some people are still out like trying to play the field and swipe right and Tinder and all that other shit. And, hopefully it work out for them and nobody don't get hurt. But I think that it's important that when we are talking about what we want and what we see for our lives, that we have to understand we don't want nothing that's not for us. And that's why I say, like, I want somebody that is willing to sit in Misa with me and take notes. I want somebody and be open to the fact that they might get told about themselves too. Okay? I want somebody that understands that when this ceremony is going on at the house and I'm going to be there all day, almost all night, maybe I might have to spend the night. Yep, that happens. I want somebody that understands that, yeah, my house is not just my house, and that for however long we together, I'm going to need to have my own space because I have a bunch of spirits that need to be accommodated and catered to. And even if I get married, I will always have my own residence. I have to. I have to have a separate space so that way I can keep everybody where they're supposed to be, unless you got enough house and land for me to have my own little spot, because I need to have my own things, because I have so many people and entities that I'm responsible to and committed to And I'm committed to myself above all before I'm committed to any other human on this earth. And I want that other person to be committed to themselves as well. And you should want the same. You should want somebody that looks at you and thinks you are the best thing since sliced bread. You should want somebody that looks at you and sees the sun, the moon, the stars, and all of the heavens. And when your mouth opens, they hear the voice of angels. You should want somebody who, when you are in whatever things that you're going through on your spiritual journey, they're understanding and they're compassionate and they're not jealous and envious, or they're not in competition with you, or they're not, passive aggressively trying to stop you from achieving the things you need to achieve. Like, some people, when they go through their initiation, when they become a Yahweh, some of their relationships just crumble. Just right before their eyes, because their Risha be like, and I already told you, stop trying to hold on to this, and I'm going to let you know exactly why, if you keep holding on, why I will take away everything that's not for you. And people will be really heartbroken. Some Yahwehs have a hard year because their marriage crumbled, or they was in a bad relationship or a domestic violence situation or whatever, and all of those things end up being the things that have to be taken away from them because it's not for them. It's not for their path. It's not for their journey. It's not for their betterment. And we have to surrender to the fact that if we want something, we have to go to our ancestors first and ask them what do they see as the best thing. Because sometimes what we think is the best thing for us, we don't even know. We can't even fathom the realm of possibilities of what is actually the best. And some of the things that you have experienced in the past may have really hurt you and traumatized you, and maybe even caused you to have blinders or blind spots where you don't even see that, yeah, baby, that's not the best for you. There's so much better for you. God has so much more planned for you than you can even imagine for yourself. Focus on you. And when I say focus on you, I ain't saying just avoid people. I'm talking about focus on all of the things that make you, your hobbies, your personality, your traumas, your fears, your joys, your spiritual practice, your religious practice, your family, your friends, your career, your lifestyle, your health. You are a whole person. One relationship does not define you at all. A few bad relationships don't make it that you just bad in relationship. That doesn't mean that. It just means you got shit to work on. And you want somebody who has developed and put so much energy into themselves to be a strong partner with you. You need to be able to put that energy in yourself as well. And I'm saying this for y'all just as much as I'm saying it for myself. So don't think I'm being hypocritical here. Like, I got mad shit I need to work on for myself. So I can't even sit up here and say nothing that I'm telling you nothing that I ain't telling myself and that has not been told to me by my elders and my siblings, It is what it is. And sometimes the road is hard, And sometimes the journey is long. You want somebody that's committed. You want somebody that's there for the long haul. You want somebody that's down for the cause, that's down for the team, that's a team player. Because at the end of the day, you and your spirits are a team. And if somebody is not cool with the team, the organization is not tight, some shit goes down, there's casualties. It can end up disastrous. I've been in situations that literally have been violent, or, there was a strong, inclination to things turning violent. And I thank my muerto every day for keeping me safe and for interjecting. I thank God for the fact that there are, spirits on the other side that want me to do the very best, and they will step in when they have to step in. Your own personal bodyguard, that shit is real. And the more that you are responsible for and the more that you are committed to, the higher the stakes. You cannot afford to squander your destiny on anything or anybody that is not divine. Okay? So, it's Valentine's Day. If you single, it's okay to be single. If you dating, it's okay to date. If you whatever you're doing, it's okay. Wherever you are in your journey of partnership, romance, all that stuff, it's okay. It's all a journey. We don't know how any of this is going to end up, but we have to respect the fact that if we believe that these energies and these spirits come from the other side to divinely guide us, that our love and our heart and all that stuff is not anything to play around with. Our bodies, our sexual relations, none of that shit is nothing to play with. It's not. So whenever you feel like you're alone, you talk to yourself, talk to your Ori and talk to your spirits and say, you know what? I know that we are physically, separated. But thank you for being with me. And thank you for reminding me that I'm never alone, even when I'm alone. I'm never alone. Okay? So I hope that you do something loving for yourself. I hope that you extend some love out into the world, to your people, to your family, to your spirits, to God. Just love is a vibration, and that vibration is felt all over. But in the same vein, you have to be in that vibration as well. And if it's just you for right now, then that's okay. And if don't nobody say I love you on Valentine's Day, then I'm gonna say it. I love you. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Be Magical podcast. My name is Nikki Buchanan. I'm the owner of Soul Things Botanica. You can find me online at soulthingsbotanica.com. You can find me on Instagram at soulthingsbk. You can find me on Instagram as well. The podcast is on Instagram, How to Be Magical Podcast. I recently started a SoundCloud page to upload episodes there. I only have the Madonna's episode there. I'm guessing I'm gonna put this episode there as well. So you can also check out SoundCloud. But I'm on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all of that good shit. So check it out. I'm still on hiatus. I'm not selling nothing right now. I am in the incubator. I'm cooking. So there are things in the works. I like to, I'm gonna surprise y'all. But thank you so much for listening. And as always, stay black, stay beautiful, and keep it magical. Peace.